Hello, hello. Welcome to Permanently Reserved. Today we're here at Bombay at the Beach with a very special guest, Mr. Paul Butler, one of my favorite regulars, and I get to see him anytime he comes into town because he loves our chai.
No doubt about it. And all of the food. Mainly, I love the hospitality. It feels like you walk into your home when you come into this restaurant. That's what I love about Bombay at the Beach.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, tell me a little bit about your travels. I mean, you've already been telling me before we started, but yeah, no, it's very interesting. You've been traveling a lot, right? Bakersfield, Seattle, Portland.
I have. I've been blessed, and thank you, Mr. Baker. I've been blessed. I had a wonderful career right here in Horry County, South Carolina, right where Myrtle Beach is. I did 27 years in law enforcement. So after you retire law enforcement, a lot of folks are kind of trapped. Like law enforcement doesn't necessarily qualify you to do a lot of different things.
Right.
So they always feel like I've got to go be a security guard or do something outside of law enforcement. I started a business of traveling and training. So kind of teaching other law enforcement officers and agencies how to do leadership, kind of how we do it in South Carolina.
Right.
Because we're very successful. We're respected in the nation with how close we are to our citizens.
Right.
And a lot of police departments struggle with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've also I've lived in a few different places in the States, and I've seen that in different areas. Like just like you said, the relationship with their local law enforcement, their authority is a bit different, right? So some places is very friendly. Like here, I can go outside, and just the other day, a cop had stopped by, and I just waved, said hi, and he got out, and he said hi, and then went on his way. Just simple hi, hello, And then in other places, I just get very nervous talking to some people,
It's because a lot of it is about how the police view the citizens,
right?
Not just how the citizens view the police, right? And there are some places where the police believe, well, I'm here as a law enforcer. Right? Well, that's a bad start.
Okay.
Because most people don't really want to feel like you're there to enforce something, right?
Yeah.
You get some places who kind of view that, the citizens are like sheep, and we're their protectors.
Right.
Well, I don't know many citizens who want to be viewed like they're sheep.
Right.
Yeah. The most successful organizations, and I think we do that really well in Myrtle Beach and certainly in South Carolina, the most successful organizations view their citizens a lot more like partners, right? And law enforcement is supposed to be about the officers feeling like servants.
Right. Public servant, right? It's in the job description.
100%. So you're not superior to anyone.
Yeah.
You're at least on the partnership level and should feel a little subordinate to them.
Right.
So when they need something, you're there to help make it happen.
Right.
I always say that law enforcement works best when people view it like a server in a restaurant.
Yep.
Everybody has a different need. Everybody likes their food a different way.
Yep.
Everybody has a different idea about how things ought to go.
Yeah.
And a good server tries to provide that experience.
Absolutely.
So it changes almost table by table.
100%.
100%. And I eat at a lot of restaurants, and I say you all do this wonderfully well here. You got Mr. Baker that is just world famous, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Mauritius to America.
Mauritius to America. That's right. But I say that one of the beauties of it is that when someone comes into a restaurant, they are there for an experience. Very few people come just to eat a meal and run out the door. Most people are there looking for something. Some people are looking to get some quiet time and some downtime.
Yeah.
They want to be left alone.
Yeah.
They want to just kind of lose themselves in their thoughts and eat a meal. Some are lonely, and they're looking for conversation. They're looking for a friend. I say that the most successful servers in the business, most successful professionals in the restaurant business are the ones who are able to identify both and give each one of them exactly what they came there for, right?
Absolutely. I can relate to that very much. Actually, I have an example of that just from a couple days ago. There was a few different tables, right? Usually people that are around like my age, late 20s to beyond, they are okay with either being left alone or with a bit of chit-chat. If they're younger than that, they really are just here like with their group, and it's like going to like an Olive Garden where it's your group. The waiter only checks in if you need anything, and on their way, right? Whereas here, particularly at Bombay at the Beach, the ambiance, the atmosphere is more. Whereas you said you're entering into our home, so you're our guest. Therefore, we talk with you, we have conversations. You know, we get to know you. Big Uncle has known people for coming up on 20 years. You know, that have been coming here on and off.
He's family to me, no doubt about it. And I say this, that law enforcement, just like you said, they best perform when they recognize the experience that their citizen is looking for, and they give it to them. There's some things that are very transactional in law enforcement. I just need a copy of a report.
Right.
I need something.
Right.
But most people don't call the police because they need something. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for a partner. They're looking for assistance.
Yep.
And that means that they have to feel like the person who shows up, steps out, and cares about them,
Yep.
is in it together with them,
Yep.
and then wants to make everything okay. And that's kind of the message I'm getting to carry around the world now, because this past week it was Bakersfield, California, which I love what they're doing out there. Seattle, Washington.
What are they doing out there?
Well, I say this. Bakersfield, California was much larger than I thought it was. A city of 400,000 people. Most police departments, we got nearly 1,000 people on staff.
Yeah.
Most police departments use that as an excuse that we're too big to give personalized service.
Right.
Bakersfield, California is saying, oh no, we're going to use the exact same model. Whether we have 1,000 people or if we had 15.
Right.
And we're going to engage with our people. And they leaned into that training. No matter what your audience's thoughts are of California and law enforcement, they were hungry to learn a lot more how to personalize that police experience. And so I'm saying you keep an eye on Bakersfield, California, because it's going to be one of those large departments, in my opinion, that kind of helps change the game and perception for major city policing.
Yeah. 400,000 is a large population. Like my town of East Windsor, New Jersey, I think we're about 25 now. It was 20 when I was younger. Now it's growing steadily. But so think about that is 4 times 4 is like 16 times the size of the town I grew up in.
Well, I grew up in Ainer, South Carolina, which has about 600 people. Okay, but I say this, that the policing style should be no different.
Yeah, that's one thing I really respect about law enforcement is that, you know, obviously there are, you know, things that happen between the law enforcement and the community, you know, but for as an officer, that you deal with so many different people a day, that you have so many different types of interactions, right? You have negative interactions, you have positive interactions, you have just, like you said, transactional interactions, right? But the fact that they can treat each instance or each moment that they interact with someone new as its own instance, right? While compartmentalizing everything that's happened before is very like amazing to me, right? Because one thing, like when I interact with officers, right? You know, they're very cordial with me, right? I've had positive, I've had negative, but you know, 90% of the time cordial. And then I think like in a police officer's line of duty, they see all sorts of things, right?
It's true.
Because one, I believe our police system is overburdened, right? There's a lot of responsibilities that police officers, the police department takes on that really should have their own style of like departments, right? Right, you see lots of gruesome things.
That's true.
You see lots of unsettling and just outright stuff where if a regular person were to see it, they'd probably need therapy for a few years. And then you have to get back to work the next day and then treat everybody with kindness and do the best you can to uphold your duty and your oath. So it's amazing.
I love your insight on that. Now, I want you to know it makes me especially proud because you're such a young man who is kind of looking at that world. You grew up in a very different world than I did. And you've actually been fed different images of law enforcement. I grew up, law enforcement was always the hero, right? They were always, you know, the man in blue is a friend to you, right? Like it was that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You've grown up in a world where all of a sudden we're not sure exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of keep our distance. But I say this. This is what I would ask young people to do. Is look at it like every other experience in the world. You said you've had some good experiences with law enforcement. You've had some bad.
Yep.
Guess what? So have I.
Yep.
All right. So I don't want to ever bring it down to that level of they're against me. It's just the normal business. But this is what I'd say. I've also had some bad experiences in restaurants. I've had bad servers in restaurants. I've had bad food in restaurants. What it doesn't make me want to do is burn their building down.
Right.
Right? It may cause me to not want to deal with them again. I may not go spend my money there again.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't make me do is run out and say, I hate all restaurants.
Right.
Or I hate every Indian restaurant.
Right.
The goal
Or
is,
even that restaurant should lose its livelihood.
Agreed.
Right?
I mean, everybody's feeding someone. Everybody's out there trying to police somebody.
Yep.
And what we have to do is be a little more kind, a little more gentle, a little more patient, and a lot more forgiving in this world. And that's if I go in and have a bad meal, give them another chance.
Right.
Because everybody can mess up and have a bad day.
Yep.
But I say it, and I love this about your restaurant. No one messes up and gets it right every time. So when you're doing that, it's because you're 100% focused, right?
Yeah.
That's why it becomes a favorite.
Right.
And I think that our young people these days are way too impatient with progress. So what they see is, I had a bad experience with a policeman, the whole department must be corrupt.
Right.
When really, even that same policeman
Yeah.
may have a different interaction the next day.
Right.
Just got to
Or
be a
even,
little...
even the next hour. Like the amount of times you guys have to go and deal with people.
Absolutely right.
Right. Just at this, the couple of hotels that used to be down the road, that have now, been removed. But this block over here used to be called Nuisance Alley, right?
That's right. Oh, I'm familiar.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. But right, was it 2022 or 2021? Averaged 2 calls a day to one of the 2 hotels. So how large is Myrtle Beach? How small is our police force?
That's right.
And they're doing 2 calls a day just to this one location, and it's 2 hotels that are nuisance, and that's just on my block, let alone the rest of Myrtle Beach or anything, let alone the Yellow House from a couple blocks over or anything like that, or the boardwalk. So
and I think that in law enforcement, I love that you kind of just humanized it. It's kind of got me thinking. I love the way you see the world, because I say this, I bet there are some customers who could come in and be very difficult, demanding, dissatisfied, and even disrespectful.
Right. It doesn't make me want to shut down shop.
Absolutely not. And it may make you want to quit dealing with them. You may wish they would quit coming here, but it doesn't make you quit being kind to other customers, right?
And even to that customer.
I love that. Even to that customer. That is the lesson we could all learn, is everyone can have a bad day. And the only thing I can guarantee you is that their day will never get better if you're rude or ugly to them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's as a law enforcement or as a restaurateur,
Yeah.
right? You have to be nicer to them to make their day better.
Absolutely. And that's something I like when I'm in person with somebody. I feel like it's so much easier just to be kind to them because I see a human in front of me. But I really, it's a tough task for me to like kind of temper myself when say a customer comes in and they have a bad experience here, right? Which you've been coming here for years, you know that it's bound to happen. We are only human, but it's very infrequent as far as our efforts go.
I believe that.
But I would much rather a customer just call myself or Bake Uncle to the side and say, hey, either this isn't exactly as I ordered, or this thing is off, or something like that, and let us know so that we can do something about it, as opposed to they'll either just quietly eat it, or have it to go, or something or the other, right?
That's right.
They'll quietly deal with it, and then they'll go online and post reviews. I've had one customer.
No doubt.
I've had one customer in our busy time in the summer. Okay, we had a wait to sit and a wait for the food. They said okay. They sat down. They ate. I asked everybody as they leave, how's the food? They said, oh, the food was good. They said, I told them in advance that the wait was going to be this. They said they didn't mind waiting. And then they went home or to their hotel or whatever, and on Google, on Facebook, on Yelp, all 3 of them, the party. So like 3 people, 3 sites, 10 reviews, like basically, berating us.
Oh yeah.
And I felt so upset. And
because that's unfair to not give someone a chance to correct it and then go and complain about it.
Right.
And I think I see that a lot. I go on reviews and I'll take a restaurant review and I'll say that it has 10 one-star reviews. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what went on. And you read and it'll be like, we went out for a beautiful evening and it rained. And like you could control the rain. Right. You always have to read kind of the validity of those 1 stars.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people aren't being fair with their assessment.
Yeah.
I say this now, I give a lot of reviews. I try to never give a bad. You got to work hard to earn a bad review from me.
I believe it.
Okay, it's true.
I believe it. From you especially.
Yeah, because as I said, I think most people do well. I think most people try to do well. Yeah. And you've got to be focused to get it right. Something can happen and it go wrong. And you never want to judge anyone on that one incident. And I think that's why my opinion about law enforcement and the police happens to be the same way. Yep. If I have, thank you,
of course.
If I have a bad experience with a police officer, I can't assume that he's a bad apple.
Right.
Or that they're a bad department, or that it's a bad profession. Mm-hmm. I have to sometimes just wait and watch and see how it unfolds. Yep. Now, I do say this, and this is my promise to you. There is no one in the world who despises a bad police officer more than good police officers.
I believe it.
And throughout my 27-year career, we policed each other very well. Mm-hmm. And every now and then you mess up. Every now and then you're too slow to figure it out. And then there's accountability that comes with that. Yep. But I promise you that there'd be nobody who would despise a bad employee better than a restaurant owner. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So if it's going on there, they don't want it either.
Yep. No,
they just don't know it.
Of course. Especially how we run on a small staff. So so we only hire externally like maybe 1 or 2 people. So if that 1 or 2 people are not good workers, then it really puts us in a bind.
Magnifies it ups your percentage.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm seeing some good things across the nation, and I'm watching things come back, even in the restaurant business. Law enforcement's coming back. The restaurant business is coming back. The training conference business is coming back. That's very good for me.
Yep.
And this year alone, I have spoken from Alaska to Argentina and then on to Africa. So It's starting to unfold around the world.
That's amazing.
And
it's amazing they've gone international.
It's amazing to me. I'm born and raised in Aner. Born and raised in Atlanta, South Carolina, on Butler Road. Right? Like my family's been out there forever. We were just little farmer kids. Yeah. But I say, and I know that you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So much about your professional perspective comes from your personal experience in childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that is why, if you're a parent out there, if you're a teacher, if you're in a church, if you're in a mosque or a temple, mm-hmm. it's so important that you become a good role model for these people who are kind of forming their ideas about how life works.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to carry that on with you.
Absolutely. It wasn't until... And as cliche as it might be, because, my parents and my elders always told me, you'll understand when you grow older. And I always thought, I'm so smart and I understood everything. I'm like, what do you mean I understand right now? I didn't, right? But, mm-hmm. Because just as we were saying, right, one person in a community doesn't make the community bad, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's race, whether it's religion or anything, right? Mm-hmm. One person or a small group doing something compared to the majority of that community, right, really shouldn't negate the entire community. In the same way, right, as an individual, we, in our heads, like, we are the only ones that know us completely, right? You only know what I express to you, I only know what you express to me as far as my vision of Mr. Butler or your vision of Akib. And so in my head, right, I'm like, okay, well, this is my thought process. These are my actions. This is what I did over here. This is what I did over there. Not realizing that things I do in one place don't carry over to the next place. So whatever, like, success or achievements I might have over here, if I make a mistake over here, I say the wrong thing over here, or behave incorrectly over here, that's what they're going to see, right? I think that's a lot of, I think that's a lot. Like, for example, let's take like social media. You see a kid misbehaving, right, on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, right? That's right. And you see a minute into this person's life and their behavior, right? And people are quick to label, oh, that's a bad kid, or the parents are bad, or this,
no doubt about it.
And it just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it is true. And we used to say in law enforcement, as everybody came to Myrtle Beach during the summer, that a certain percentage of every group is going to be a problem. And that's whether you are hosting bikers or preachers
Yep.
or police officers
Yep.
or restaurateurs, right? Spring breakers. There's a certain percentage, but that percentage is usually very small. They're just the most noticeable ones. They're the most memorable ones. And that's why we have to be so careful in labeling others that this group is a problem, right? When really it's just this tiny percentage of that group is a problem. And like I said, I try to remind everyone that applies to law enforcement too. Yeah, there are people who aren't in that job for the right reasons. But what I never want to do is get them confused with the 98% who are there doing a job every day, going through those traumas, like you said, and serving with pride and commitment and honoring their oath. Those are the ones I like to make sure we remember too.
Yep. And that's why, you especially, that's why, I look up to you in that sense, is that 27 years in law enforcement in Conway, right?
Oh, yeah, that's all right here in Horry County. That's
right.
True.
So, my family has a gas station in Conway. I know what the residents there, what some of them are like, and how some of them can be and how others are. I met really great people in Conway.
That's exactly right.
I met really not great people in Conway, right?
It'll be the same in Conway and Karachi, Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to read
anywhere you go.
A certain percentage are going to be awesome, the majority, and a little tiny percentage are dangerous, right?
Absolutely. When you see a negative depiction of an outsider, you say, "Oh, that's because they're that group."
That's right.
Whereas if someone from your group or your community expresses the exact same things, you say, "Oh, well, we know how we're supposed to be. That person is just flawed. That's an individual problem. On that side, it's a community problem.
Yeah.
For anybody, it's an individual problem, right?"
It is, but don't you think though that our citizenry, and that's me included, us, we still are governed by the rules of the herd mentality.
Yeah.
All right. So you take it out on the Serengeti. If you're an impala, and there are no good lions, right? There might be
the animal, not the Chevy, right?
That's exactly right. But there are no good lions. There might be a lazy one, but there's no good ones, right? Because they're a danger to you.
Yeah.
And I think that we run into that same mentality sometimes to say, okay, I'm just going to simplify this for you. Stay away from these people, right? Stay away from this group. That's the danger.
Yep.
But I also say it's not unfair that if I'm trying to teach my children to get them to a period where they can be safe and make their own decisions and get their own experience, it's not as negative to say, all right, I need you to be careful whenever you're doing this, whenever you're going to this section, whenever you're doing this.
Oh, for sure.
There's
some decisions that you can base on statistics. There's some decisions that are based on just instinct or intuition, right? So, here, whenever I have guests that come, I tell them, you can go to the beach anytime, right? You can be on the boardwalk or on the boulevard anytime. Right. You'll be all right because the boardwalk has police. The boulevard has police in the cars, basically on every traffic light, right? The boardwalk has the police riding around on the bikes, on the bicycles, and then the beach has the one truck with the spotlight shining, going
exactly right, beach patrol.
So, if you're gonna go from the restaurant to the beach, walk that straight line under the streetlights. Don't go off. Don't go this way. Don't go that way. Just go straight to the boulevard, and then you're okay. Then you can go left and right.
Yeah.
But if you're that's not coming out of anything other than I know things happen, right? So I'm on 7th Avenue. So from 5th to 11th or 12th, there's some sort of incident happening all the time. I have this app on my phone that gives me the local headlines, and it goes off every day, right? Sirens are driving by day and night. So this isn't from any sort of prejudice. It's just, hey, this stuff happens here.
Everywhere in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some place you can go and get hurt.
Yep.
right? When I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, they were the nicest people in the world. It was easy, it was beautiful, and cobblestone streets, and I wanted to get out and just walk. But what my friend reminded me is, hey, I just need you to be careful which area you walk in. No matter how pleasant it seems, how beautiful, I need you to be aware. Well, then I fly to Kampala, Uganda. And they were the kindest, most gentle, generous, wonderful people in the world, like so welcoming. And it's easy to deal with the majority and all of a sudden get that false sense of security that I could go anywhere. And next thing you know, you stumble into a section where it would be a problem for you. Well, Myrtle Beach has that. But I say this, I know the chief there, Chief Proc. I know many of the officers and some of the command staff, and I know that they have a government in place that's dedicated to trying to make it better every day. They do care about it.
Yep.
It's just so difficult to do these days under the rules that we all live by of how I can go and approach you to find out what your intentions are.
Yeah.
We're becoming so reactive. I almost have to wait for you to commit a crime to say, I knew it. Let's go do it. Well, by then that's a terrible time to get involved.
Yeah.
Proactive policing has to come back if we're going to save our cities and our societies.
Right.
It has to be okay for someone to stop me and say, hey, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Well, I'm just here to see my friend. Oh, okay. And then it's legitimate and go.
Right.
But I can't be so angry that I was inconvenienced.
Right.
That I caused them to let 1,000 criminals go because they're afraid to stop them.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll give a story of when I first moved out here. So I came here coming up on 6 years ago, and in the spring, so just in the lead up to summer. And so after, so I think this is in my first month or so, the local patrol didn't recognize my car, right? Because my dad's car, they recognize it's in the parking lot.
That's right.
So they know his car, but they didn't know my car. But after the restaurant closed, I would go just sit in my car and talk to my girlfriend at the time, who was back up north. I think you met her.
That's right. I did.
But so I would just sit in my car and talk to her or talk to other friends before I went upstairs and went, But because I was sitting outside in the parking lot, which is like in public view, and I was in my car, right? Police comes up, shines a spotlight in the car, and now I'm getting red. I'm like, I'm in my own home, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm getting upset, and I had to, wake my father up to come downstairs to express to the policeman that no, I live here, and this is our place and everything. And for a long time, I was upset about that. But then the longer I'm here, the more I realize what actually happens in this particular area. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually glad he did that, because I could have just been any random person in my parking lot.
Like I started to say, I love to hear a story where someone came up and just asked, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I used to be on patrol in Horry County, and it was very rural where I was policing. And I would ride down the road, and sometimes I would see a moving van backed up to a house, putting things in the van. Well, I got two choices. Say, well, maybe they're breaking in and robbing those people, but I don't want to offend anybody by checking. Or I can whip in there and say, hey, what are you all doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I live here. Mind showing me your driver's license? Let me tell you, I wish people would check more.
Yeah.
Because that keeps crime from getting out of control and hiding behind the idea that you're afraid to challenge me.
Yeah.
I can never remember an instance where some homeowner didn't say, my God, thank you for checking.
Yeah.
Because everybody's vulnerable. We're in this together. And a good partnership is about me trying to look out for you before you know you need looking out for.
Yeah.
That's a really good partnership.
Absolutely.
And so I love to hear a story where someone came into that restaurant parking lot and said, hey, what are you doing here? Can you prove it?
Right.
I see you have out-of-state.
At that time, I couldn't, though, because this was before.
Exactly.
So this is when
right.
I first moved in. So this is before I had changed my license to South Carolina license. Right, my car still had the New Jersey plates on it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I was just lucky that my dad wasn't closing at the gas station that day. Right, he had come home. Somebody else was closing, so he was actually home.
That's true.
So if he wasn't home, this is before Big Uncle had a cell phone, and he was already asleep. So there was no way for me to wake him up. So I was really worried. That if my dad was so okay, I'm in the parking lot. I don't have anything that ties me to South Carolina on me, right? I I was asking the cop, like, hey, can I just show you? I had the keys. Like, let me go open this door. You'll see that and he didn't want to let me inside the gate. So I was just lucky my dad opened answered his phone that day. So in retrospect, yeah, I can say the cop was doing a good thing for me. But in the moment, I was extremely, nervous.
And we should have more open conversation. There needs to be a lot more dialogue these days that just says what you can't do is ever let your nervousness, which is normal. If the police pull me over, I have that moment of nervousness, right? What we can never do is allow our nervousness to all of a sudden become aggression,
Right.
or anxiety to the point that I become more suspicious, because it's law enforcement's job to kind of key in on, am I dealing with something normal here, or is it outside the norm? And I say this now, I've pulled a 1,000 people over in my career. No one who ever just simply answered my questions and helped me feel more comfortable about them ever had any trouble with me, right? So it's not the police officer, it's usually the reaction by the police officer to what they feel is going on there.
Okay.
Now, as I said, you get a bad police officer, somebody who's charging up there, making their assumptions, deciding I've got something here, and I'm going to make sure I find the crime that fits my feelings.
Right.
Well, that's all on the officer.
Yeah.
But I say this, fighting back on the side of the road usually doesn't really go that well for you either.
No, I believe.
Yeah. It's better. We have such a great justice system here, and we do, best in the world.
Yep.
We have such a great justice system that it's best to go along and then fight it in court or follow up with legal action, a complaint, have it investigated. If this person's doing that, we need to be notified too. But then you become a partner in the police progress instead of an adversary.
Yeah.
And causing people to rally around the police side of things.
I will say Myrtle Beach police, and to an extent Conway police also, but I spend more of my time here at the restaurant, have really changed my perception on law enforcement. Because in New Jersey I didn't really interact with them too much. In California, when I lived in California, a lot of that perception is just kind of negative, and I can kind of see why. There's a lot of tension, a lot of historical riots and everything that happened over there. Just the whole West Coast music scene and everything. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into it. So I mostly steer cleared. Not that I personally had any negative experiences with the cops in California, but then I come here and it's just other than that very first one that I just went over, it's always been a lot of positive interactions. Just a couple months ago, I got into that bad car accident. And,
That's right.
And Louis was in the car with me, and even as I was being taken to the hospital, and while they were getting rid of my car, right, one of the officers or two of the officers stayed there with Louis until my father was able to come from Conway and pick up my dog. And they just stayed right there. They said, okay, obviously we don't have your father's number, but he knows where the accident happened because I had called him. So we'll stay right here on this corner until he comes.
I'm going to tell you, I just speak for the overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers who really care. Sometimes it doesn't come off that way when things are mundane and they're just normal things. But during crunch time, most of them are putting their lives on the line. They are resisting that urge to become afraid or out of control. They're fighting through it and running toward the fire when everyone else is running away. Mm-hmm. And I remember we had a plane crash here in Horry County while I was on the job. Oh, wow. And this was one of those terrible, you can imagine this situation. It's a small plane that crashes. Yeah. And it throws the fuel and fire forward. So it immediately kills everyone in the plane crash. But it killed.
How long ago was this?
Oh, this was probably 15 years ago. No, 20 years ago now. I forgot how long I've been off the job. Probably 20 years ago. Happened in North Myrtle Beach, near the airport. But when it crashes and kills the people in the plane, it throws the fuel and the fire forward. Wow. And strikes a man who's walking his dog.
Oh, no.
Kills the man.
I believe it.
So he's just walking his dog in a plane crash. And the dog was burned severely. Well, I want you to know we had an officer, David Cobb was his name. I worked with him. He looks at this scene where he realizes, I can't do anything for these folks. I can't. And he scoops that dog up and takes it immediately to a veterinarian, like in his arms, like it's just a mess going. and saves that dog's life. And while the loss of a life is terrible on any level, that was one of the things we were able to rally around and say, he had his heart in the right place. He's able to think clearly during a plane crash, to be able to say, I can't do anything about this, but I am going to take care of this while I can.
Save what I can.
Save what I can. And I say that so many out there today, just like servers and restaurant owners, their hearts are in the right place. They're doing it for the right reason. And during crunch time, they'll get it right 999 times out of 1,000. It's actually the downtime where we're the most dangerous to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That's where we start looking for something and make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Now, I still believe in proactive police, and I think they should be out there looking. I don't like reactive police, and I think that's a bad sign for law enforcement. But I do believe that there should be a heightened awareness and a little more careful approach to saying, now when I walk up here, I realize that it's not the danger zone unless I sense it. My job is to go ahead and approach as a partner. Hey, how you doing? What you doing here? I mean, you live there? What goes on? Who else lives here? Things you can confirm it conversationally.
Right.
And I think you're seeing law enforcement turn that way. The number one problem, I would say, for my young people in the world is sometimes they're not the best conversationalists. They're tons better at technology.
Oh, yeah.
Tons better at text.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at some point, those are the people who are policing these days. It's not the old gray-haired guys like me.
Right. It's the people that grew up on their phones. I mean, think about it, right? Because my brother is 23 now. And I'm sure there's rookies on the force that are also 23. I couldn't imagine my brother being a police officer.
I started a month after I turned 21. Yeah. I can't imagine me doing that now, right? Because the world just changes so quickly. Mm-hmm. And you want to know one of the major things that has changed in the world? And this I kind of stumbled on when I was at a class. I was talking to an instructor who taught defense tactics. In other words, if you and I are going to get in a fight,
right,
how I can hold you without having to fight you, to punch you,
sure.
right?
Like grappling.
100%, that you can stay in control. And he said the most interesting thing I never thought about is he said, I can take 50 or 100 law enforcement officers, cadets who are learning the job, about to become police officers. He said, I can ask them, how many of you have ever been in a fight in your life?
Might be zero.
He said, without fail, it'll be maybe one, maybe two.
Yeah.
Well, now, when I became a police officer, everybody had been in a fight in their lives.
You probably had like 50 under your belt.
It's what you had to do. You did it on the playground. You never let anyone push you.
Yep.
You didn't. And so we learned how to get in a fight. You and I could have a disagreement. Yep. You beat me, I beat you. But we learned kind of...
Put it in the past.
We're
the next time you get in a fight.
100%. You either got better or you shied away, right?
Yep.
But everyone was kind of... There were fights happening in school.
Right.
Now, we've sterilized that environment so much that if I threaten you or call you a name, well, then you're expelling me. No one's ever in a fight. No one's ever having to kind of figure out how to get along. Well, now you're bringing this mentality into law enforcement that says, all right, I'm going to be in charge of you. The moment you push back, hit me, disagree with me, well, I'm not really sure what to do next.
Right. And you take it to level 100 instead of like keeping it at a 5.
100%. Yeah. So you're seeing officers make that mistake that says, he hit me, so I shot him.
Right.
But you want to know what we're seeing in society that's number one problem? He disrespected me, so I shot him.
Yeah.
That mentality is societal, and it's generational.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things we've got to start addressing to make sure that we all, as we go back to what we started the conversation with, become just a little more kind, a little more gentle, a little more patient, and a whole lot more forgiving.
Absolutely. And I think a lot more people need to do some sort of, so I was growing up, my parents pushed me academically, but they also put me in a lot of like physical sports. Not that I was ever good at any of them, but the one thing that stuck with me, at least through my childhood, was martial arts. So, while in adulthood, I'm not a martial artist, in childhood, it really helped me come up with a mentality that I could carry through my life, right? So, like, that's one thing my sensei taught me was, right now you're a martial artist physically, but you can remain a martial artist mentally for the rest of your life, because there's something that you need, something mental foundations to become a good athlete. And those things can apply basically anywhere in any aspect of life, right?
No doubt about it.
Right. The old saying, better be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, right? So I
Very
mean,
well said.
you kind of take that mentality of like, of don't push into fights, right? And even when people are instigating you, right, you want to constantly keep it de-escalated,
Absolutely.
right?
Diffuse and de-escalate.
Right. Fights,
Every time.
Yeah, exactly. Fights need to be like the last resort. Violence needs to be
Absolutely.
the last resort, right? Which is why I think martial arts are so great for kids and just athletics in general, is that there's a controlled environment where you can push yourself to find your capabilities. But then when you're out in the real world, so you know you're capable of something, and then you just work to avoid having to use that capability.
Mm. Okay, but I tell my daughter, my daughter Holly has my first little grandson right now, little Atlas, cute as a button.
Yeah.
And he's a little boy. And you can see, because I also have a granddaughter. You know my granddaughter.
Yep. Oh, super adorable. I love it when you guys come in.
She is so adorable.
Yeah.
And let me tell you this, though. She does view the world differently. She's very gentle. She's very methodical. He wants to push something. He wants to see it. Even he's turning 1 this month, so he's tiny. But he's wanting to hit something. He's wanting to do. And little boys need to learn that you can push the limits. And they also need to learn that it's okay to fall down. It's okay to get knocked down. It's okay to get hit. It doesn't hurt forever.
Yeah.
But most of us are just so stunned when somebody pushes us that we, as you said, take it to 100 and overreact.
Yeah.
And you all of a sudden have somebody who's grown up in a world where they're fighting every day.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, they meet someone, the sharpest officer in the world, who's never been in a fight in their life. That's a bad mix about to happen.
Yep.
And so you're seeing these overreactions,
Yep.
but it's because we're not really sure what to do. I say let children be children. The little boys ought to be, I saw a guy say it the other day. He said, let them do dangerous things safely.
Yep.
Right? Being in martial arts. What's that?
Who was it that said that?
I saw it online the other day. I'm a guy who watches those little reels and all those things.
Yeah.
And I saw a guy say the most incredible thing, because he said, let little boys do dangerous things safely.
Yeah, I'd rather a kid fall off this chair than fall off the roof.
Because
they're going to fall either way.
If you don't let them eventually fall off the chair and pick themselves up and figure out that it's going to be okay, well, they will be on the roof one day and not know what to do.
Yep.
And so you have to measure that and say, oh my gosh, I need to be careful at what I do. Little girls are tougher these days too. You're watching them play hard. That's good for them. Playing sports, soccer, as you said, mixing it up.
Yeah.
And learning that I might have to fight for myself sometime.
Yeah. And learning that you can take a hit.
Everyone can. I promise you.
Taking a hit, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, listen.
Far from it.
When I first started, you were policing by yourself. I mean, it was 1988.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
1988 in rural South Carolina. And I'm going to tell you, there were no harsh laws on fighting with the police back then. You could run from the police,
Really?
it was a ticket.
Ah.
You could hit the police, it was a misdemeanor. Right?
Go back to 88 for some people.
I tell you, the funniest thing about it is now somebody would slap the taste out of your mouth on a call back then, right? Like, you better be careful how you deal with people. But you know what? It made me a better officer.
Yeah.
Because it made me approach gently. It made me realize that I need to diffuse this thing. I need to verbally de-escalate.
Right.
But I say this now, this is also something else that changed, is if you were obviously going to be a physical threat to me, there was no sitting around begging you, sir, quit hitting me. No, you had the ability to fly on them too. And that way everybody had mutual respect.
Yeah.
They knew the same. Like, I had to be gentle with them, I had to be careful, had to be very respectful.
Yep.
But now if they weren't going to comply with that, then they had to be afraid too. I wasn't the only one on the scene who had to be nervous.
Of course, the respect has to be mutual.
Has to be mutual. Or I say this, if the respect isn't mutual, it doesn't exist.
Right.
There is no way for one person to respect another if the other one doesn't respect them.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, respect can't be one way.
It's your imagination.
If respect is one way, we have a term for that. It's called worship.
Well said. Well said.
So,
it's true. And a lot of people don't understand the boundaries if you don't force them to respect you back. And that's in a relationship. It's in a partnership. It's in a friendship. It's in the police citizen partnership, right? It's all the same. Respect has to be mutual, or it just does not exist.
Absolutely. This was an amazing conversation.
I love talking with you. I'm so glad we did this.
Absolutely. You know, this is my first episode, first podcast, and I was actually kind of nervous. And, you know, of course, that's why I wanted you to be my first guest, because even though I might be nervous, I sit down with you, then I'm no longer nervous. You're just so friendly. You have such warm atmosphere about you. I can see why so many people respect you and why everybody wants you all over the place to hear you talk.
I love and respect them back, I promise.
All right.
And I say this, anybody out there who watches this, it is indeed my friend, but if you have any follow-up, any comments or questions you want to make, I have a website too, paul-butler.com, paul-butler.com, all common spelling. It has the ability to reach out to me with comments. Don't be afraid to reach out, email me, or send a message through my website.
He has a great Instagram also, where he just posts pictures of all the conferences he speaks at. And
I feel like I have a pretty good Instagram. My daughters were responsible for that. They said, Daddy, you got to start appealing to the young people. You've got all the old gray-haired guys. Your job is to hit that next generation. And I have to say, just like they predicted, I have a larger following on Instagram than I do on LinkedIn or X or Twitter. But it's at Paul Butler SC, like South Carolina, at Paul Butler SC. You reach out to me if you have any questions, comments. Maybe you can help change my perspective. Maybe I can help change yours. But I want you to know that it's conversations just like this that move the world forward, and I appreciate you being part of that today. Love you.
Love you too.